Prince Apple. The wide doors behind Miss Secretary's desk swung open. Redder than ever, Bradley slipped past the woman and stepped into the next room. The throne room was small and cramped. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, a tilting stack of papers standing on top of each other. Red, yellow, and orange light filtered through an apple shaped stained glass window, flooding the floor and a large wooden desk in the center of the room with color. Above the desk, a large pendulum swung slowly back and forth, back and forth. Behind the desk, almost hidden by more stacks of papers, sat a small man in a swivel chair. He wore a white shirt and a long tie decorated with apples, yellow ones and red ones. On his head sat a brown, bucket shaped crown that could have been easily mistaken for an overturned wastebasket. He swiveled in his chair one way and then the other, watching a plaid spider climb the wall. Bradley stepped nervously toward the desk along a red carpet. Prince Apple, he said. The man spun around and smiled. Bradley had seen smiles similar to this one on his principal's face and knew it could mean anything. Ah, said the man. Bradley swallowed. You're the ruler of this island? Uh-huh, said the man, nodding. Well, sir, my name is Bradley Zimmerman, and I was wondering if you could help me. Aha, said the prince, raising a finger. Bradley shuffled his feet and continued. You see, sir, my teacher, Mrs. Grossen, or Miss Eraser, as you call her, brought my class to the island on a blimp. Huh? Went the prince. He leaned toward his intercom and spoke loudly. Miss Secretary, send this memo to all teachers. There will be no more classes brought to the Apple Island on a blimp. I repeat, no more blimp rides for classes. But you see, sir, I escaped from the teachers and I walked all the way to Office Palace. Ah, said the prince, nodding. But now I don't know what to do, said Bradley. I think my class is in danger. It all has to do with something called Operation Misteach. Uh-oh, said Prince Apple, returning to the intercom. Miss Secretary, another memo, please. Tell all teachers anything called Operation Misteach will end immediately. I repeat, Operation Misteach is canceled. Bradley was beginning to have a bad feeling about this visit. You see, sir, I thought you might know what the teachers were planning, he said. Would you know where they took my class? The prince shook his head slowly. He said. So you don't know what is happening on this island? The prince drummed his fingers on the desktop. Well, the fact is, Bradley, he said, I haven't been out of this office for a long, long time. Bradley let out a long sigh. So you're a prisoner on this island just like Mr. Janitor? Uh-huh, said the prince. The teachers used to find me useful. They let me make up rules, handle the discipline, that sort of thing. I also made sure the supply room was well stocked with freshly picked thumbtacks and crayons from the mines. But that was many, many years ago. So what do you do all day besides send out memos? Asked Bradley. Evaluations, said Prince Apple. I write reports on the teachers and give each of them a yearly grade. But how can you grade teachers if you never leave Office Palace? The head teacher tells me what grade to give, said the prince. The teachers who do exactly what all the other teachers do get good grades. The teachers who do anything different get a poor grade. Once a teacher tried reading a book, poor grade. Once a teacher asked to leave this island because she wondered what was beyond the horizon. Very poor grade. But isn't that what teachers tell us kids to do? Read books and wonder what the world is like? Said Princess Apple. You ask too many questions, Bradley. I'll give you the grade D minus. Bradley pointed to the ceiling. So what's that swinging thing for? He asked. The ruler of Apple Island waved his hand above his head. That's the great pendulum of education, he explained. It's a reminder that teachers should never allow education to move forward. If it moves forward one year, it must move backward the next. Forward, backward. Forward, backward. You mean like in my school, one year they taught reading one way and the next year it was a completely different way, and now they're teaching it the way they did before? The pendulum of education must keep swinging, said Prince Apple. Even though the three R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, have changed little in centuries, teachers must constantly change how to teach them. Sounds like teachers are more confused than the kids, said Bradley. I don't even know why they call them the three R's when only one of them starts with R. Ugh. Like I said, Bradley, you asked too many questions, said Prince Apple. Bradley now realized that this long trip to Office Palace had been a waste of time. But if you can't help me, he asked, how am I going to find my class? Said Prince Apple, pulling his chin for a moment. Then he spun 360 degrees in his chair and said, aha! I remember a place where you can go to get some information. Try the big book building, 3 miles down the great hallway. I heard it's filled to the rafters with books. At one time, it contained every book ever written in every language in the world. I guess that's where I should go, said Bradley. Sorry to leave you so soon, sir, but I have a class to save. And he turned and ran toward the door. Prince Apple pointed his finger at the boy's feet. Bradley, he called out. There's a rule against running in Office Palace. Sorry, said Bradley, and he walked out the door. Purple Lake. As Bradley left the throne room, Miss Secretary looked up from her computer screen with a smile. Are you really going to save your entire class? She asked. Apparently, she had listened on her intercom to Bradley's conversation with Prince Apple. Bradley grew crimson again and shrugged. Guess so, he said. I'll try my best. That's so brave, said the woman. I doubt many boys would attempt such a daring rescue. It's nothing, said Bradley, shrugging some more. Nothing at all. He stumbled toward a door marked Emergency Exit and pressed the metal bar. With a clang, the door opened and he was out of there. Outside the exit stood two teachers with silver whistles around their necks. Quickly, Bradley ducked behind a long hedge. Bending low, keeping his ear cocked for the sound of a whistle, he followed the hedge to the corner of Office Palace. The great hallway now lay only 20 yards away. After checking in both directions, he sprinted across the road and leaped into the brush. The land Bradley had entered was dank, damp, dense, and difficult to walk through. The trees grew so close together their branches allowed only gray sunlight to reach the ground. Bradley inspected the hard yellow fruit dangling from the gnarly limbs. Crab apples, he said. I must be in the southern half of the island. The tree branches clawed at Bradley's pants and shirt as he trudged on. Thick moss, identical to the green felt in his classroom, covered the twisted trunks, and a chilly coffee-colored fog clung to the swampy ground. Squish, 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 went his sneakers in the soft red muck that looked and smelled like modeling clay. After a mile or so, Bradley entered a narrow ravine. Steep walls, as smooth and black as chalkboards, rose on both sides of him. Hope I don't meet any teachers in here, he said. I'd be trapped. Shh! Bradley froze. The sound had come from somewhere ahead. Who's there? He called. Shh! Must be the wind, he said. Shh! Bradley decided to experiment. He clapped his hands. Shh! Some kind of echo, he said. Maybe this is where teachers came up with that sound to quiet kids. Shh! Hey, I'm Bradley, he shouted. Shh! And teachers can't stop me. Shh! Shortly after leaving the ravine, Bradley arrived on the sandy shores of a large lake. He would have enjoyed a quick swim, except that liquid in the lake was dark purple. Small purple waves lapped up onto the white sand. On the beach lay three teachers' pets, sunning themselves. Hey, 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 hee, 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 hi, hi, ho, 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 ho. Bradley approached the water's edge, shaking his fist. Get lost, scram, get out of here, he shouted, and the scaly yellow creatures scampered into the brush. Crouching, Bradley stuck a finger into the lake's purple fluid. This entire lake is filled with ink, he said. I'd better be careful. My mom would kill me if I got a spot on this shirt. Clear hollow reeds grew in the shallows. They gave Bradley an idea. He broke off one reed and dunked it into the lake. He was holding something that looked remarkably like a pen. Now, if only I had something to write on, he said. He turned toward a grove of trees behind the beach. The leaves on these trees were white like paper and rectangular like paper. They were smooth like paper and fluttered in the breeze as paper would do. Bradley reached up and felt one leaf. "This is paper," he said. Then on it, with his newly crafted pen, he wrote, "Bradley was here," in his best cursive handwriting. At that moment, Bradley heard chattering and ducked behind a tree. Up the beach, two teachers were strolling toward him. Each teacher carried two wooden buckets. While one picked paper leaves off a tree, the other removed her shoes and waded into the lake. "You know, Miss Paper," called the waiting teacher, "isn't it your turn this week to collect this writing solution? I hate putting my feet in this blankety blank stuff." "Remember, Miss Ink," replied the other, "we all take turns doing duties on the island." "Yes, but ever since those goody-goody teachers left, we have twice the number of jobs to do." "You've been belly aching about that for over 100 years, Miss Ink. Now just do your work and make it snappy. We must get back to this. Capital S, capital C, capital H, capital O, capital O, capital L. The assembly begins in 2 hours." From his hiding place, Bradley looked on. "So that explains why all the crabby teachers have purple ankles," he told himself. "They've all been waiting in this inky lake." Miss Ink dipped her pail into a dark wave. "Wasn't it this great fun this morning, making that typical class write those blankety blank stories?" she said. "I must say it was excellent practice for us crabby teachers." "Yes, teaching writing is quite simple," said Miss Paper, continuing to pick leaves. "You just order a class to write a story. Then for the next hour you can sit at her desk and drink coffee." "But I hate wasting those leaves on story writing," said Miss Ink. "They're much more useful for making paper airplanes and spitwads and cootie catchers." Miss Paper's buckets were now full. "You know, Operation Misteach is going exceedingly well," she said. "After these training sessions, and many more of us can go to America. We should have every school there under crabby teacher control in June." Miss Ink waded to shore with her buckets. "And next school year, we can begin misteaching in Europe and Asia and Africa and everywhere. Soon we'll be doing that blankety blank teaching all over this blankety blank blank planet." As the two teachers strolled back up the beach, they sang a little song. Misteach, misteach, the best way to preach. Why instruct right when you can misteach, misteach?" Bradley leaned against the tree trunk. "This Operation Misteach is bigger than I thought," he said to himself. "Not only do I have to save my class, but I have to save my whole school. And not just my school, but all the schools in the world." Bradley was more convinced than ever that the big book building was the best place to go. He took off southward in a run.